Later this morning, we will also hear from some of the world's leading financial institutions and investors on the role that finance will play in decarbonization. We know we need greater public and private investment to scale up renewable power. Today's environmental, social, and governance priorities require the private sector to follow its genius in allocating capital and resources toward profitable returns while finding sustainable and equitable solutions to enormous climate challenges. We know smart investments in climate action can generate real financial returns above the cost of capital. Climate investments done right will not only speed up the energy transition, but also reduce energy poverty, recognizing that still today, over 1 billion people, roughly 15% of the world's population, lack access to reliable, affordable power supply. This is why I am looking forward to speaking with the Business and Energy Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, after lunch on how the government will implement the Prime Minister's 10-point plan. Later today, Lord Grimstone, the Minister for Investment, will launch an investment atlas focused on green that details specific investment opportunities in every corner of this country. Crucially, climate investments will enable us to counter the international knock-on effects from energy poverty, including disorderly migration, deteriorating living standards, and geopolitical conflict. I am therefore thrilled that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the Director General of the World Trade Organization, is here to share her thoughts on how the world moves international trade onto a sustainable footing. So, ladies and gentlemen, looking forward to today's agenda, my hope is that today's event offers a platform for us all to show leadership on how to find and fund climate solutions to support generations to come. I would urge you, as leaders, to share your hopes, ideas, and concerns around the energy transition throughout today. It is now my great honor to introduce the Secretary of State for the Department of International Trade, the Right Honorable Anne-Marie Trevelyan.
It is my great pleasure to open our Global Investment Summit today and to welcome you all to the Science Museum. With enormous thanks to Dame Mary Archer and Sir Ian Blatchford for hosting us in this amazing setting. The Science Museum shows the technological and mechanical progress that we have made over more than 2 centuries, from the first steam engines to the pod used by our very own Tim Peake. Scientific progress which has been mainly built on human ingenuity and carbon. It is time to put our reliance on carbon as a source of energy behind us and to look to our clean, green future and the innovation through investment critical to driving this forwards. Here at the Science Museum, the Energy Revolution Gallery, generously sponsored by Gautam Adani, illustrates some of the exciting potential of green and clean innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, there is nowhere better to invest than the UK. We are the fastest growing economy in the G7 and flying the flag for free and fair trade as president of the G7 this year. We are positioning ourselves at the centre of an advanced network of trade deals with the world's largest and fastest growing economies. We are rallying the world as hosts of COP26 Summit to combat climate change and keep the challenge of 1.5 degrees alive. Now, the UK is a science and tech superpower, from our trials on fusion power to our development of a COVID vaccination and rollout in record time. As the world recovers from coronavirus, investment to energise world trade has never been more important. It is vital to supporting jobs, growth, and the long-term prosperity for all. Investors are helping us grow from strength to strength, from Pfizer in Swindon to Valneva in Scotland and Wockhardt in Wales. This success is underpinned by the UK's unique offer to investors as a low-tax, high-skill economy, and also a respected 4R rule of law. That is why we see the industries of the future thriving across the UK, from the world's largest offshore wind farm rising off the east coast of Yorkshire, to electric cars being built from Sunderland to Swindon. Fundamentally, investment is critical to seizing the great opportunities and indeed tackling the challenges of our time. Investment leads to more successful companies, generating wealth, new ideas, and well-paid jobs for local people. In the last decade alone, investment has created over 700,000 jobs across the country. And we are opening ourselves up to new investment opportunities to help build back better than ever before. Investment also provides the spark for companies to innovate, especially in the clean technologies needed to combat climate change and sustainably secure our future. Take the northeast of England, where the world's first steam railway ran. Now, the Tees Valley is set to be home to the UK's first ever hydrogen transport hub and the world's first net zero industrial zone. Our historic industrial heartlands are right at the heart of our green industrial revolution, and that is being fueled by investment. We know there are huge economic opportunities in green enterprise. $30 trillion of global investment funds already invested in sustainable assets, having doubled in just 4 years. A global export market for low-carbon products set to be worth over $2 trillion by 2030. And the UK's low-carbon economy set to grow by 11% a year. Put simply, investment means prosperity and sustainability for us all. The UK is working flat out to maximise its potential as a global hub for trade and investment. Our Office of Investment, under the leadership of my colleague Lord Grimstone, is helping secure the most strategic and high-value deals. Only last month, we had the expansion of our sovereign investment partnership with the UAE to £10 billion, to the benefit of our life sciences, green tech and services industries. This office was launched by the Prime Minister, who you'll be hearing from shortly, as his personal commitment that the UK is open to those who want to realise their ambitions here and to grow. We are also working through our new trade and investment hubs to provide on-the-ground expertise for investors and to help channel funding into every region and nation of the UK. This is Global Britain in action, looking outward to embrace new opportunity. That is why we are inviting you all to seize the opportunities of the future. Together, we can spearhead an investment-led recovery by working to realise our ambitions. That is how we build back better, stronger, and greener than ever. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to this first Global Investment Summit. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look around this extraordinary science museum, but when you look at these strange old gizmos and contraptions, these proto-turbines and spinning jennies, it's incredible to think that they are, like so many in this audience, they are the cornflakes that got to the top of the packet. They are the winners. And I want you to think instead of all the millions of misshapen mutant objects that never made it into this museum, the TVs that didn't turn on, the rockets that blew up, the cars that were meant to run on rhubarb wine. I want you to think of all those inventors in history blubbing in their scorched garages. And I want you to think about how exhausting and time-consuming and expensive it is to produce a genuine scientific breakthrough. And then I want you to reflect on the sheer improbability of what humanity has achieved in the last 18 months. We still don't have a vaccine for AIDS. We don't have a cure. We don't have a cure for the common cold. But within a year of the appearance of COVID-19, this lethal new virus with its uncanny powers of transmission, we have forged an entirely new set of armour for our species, and it's getting stronger all the time. I've had my vaccine, several in fact. Have you? Yes? Full to the washing around your eye, washing around the back teeth with vaccine. We all are, and it's thanks to this protection that we've been able to hold this summit in the way that we are, and to meet and even to shake hands in the old-fashioned way, do some of the things that we always used to do. And the current stresses and strains in the global supply chains are actually a function, of course, of an economy, a world economy, that is suddenly surging again with demand and vaccine-induced confidence. And that's why this country is forecast to have the fastest growth of any advanced economy in the world next year. That's not just Rishi saying that, it's the OECD. Consumer spending in the UK per capita is almost a third higher than our friends in the EU. And when you look at the lightning speed of the vaccine rollout, there were all sorts of things that made it possible. We had scientists at a great university, my own as it happens, who produced an affordable room temperature vaccine. And then did a fantastic deal with the UK government, by which we were able to send about 1.5 billion doses at cost around the world. We had the NHS to put it into our arms, all the army of council workers, the volunteers, everybody who helped. But we had one other thing that made those vaccines possible, my friends, and you know what it is. It was something that many of you represent, all of you represent, and that is free market capitalism. Free market capitalism, the willingness to spend massive sums at risk on something that might never come off. And we had great companies, AstraZeneca, the direct lineal descendant of Brunner-Mond and ICI. We had Pfizer, Moderna, and others. And in Wales, I'm proud to say we had the bottling plant that made it all possible. Wockhardt, actually an Indian company. Do you know that? Wockhardt from Mumbai, whose family motto was work hard, hence Wockhardt. That's true. It was the heart walk of those companies, of Wockhardt and their staff, it's absolutely true, that made it possible. And the whole system is supported by investors and shareholders and bankers. That's how this miracle was performed. And I think it's a very significant event historically, because for more than 10 years or so, we've all been worrying that Francis Fukuyama, remember him? We've all been worrying that he was wrong, and we've been thinking, what if the future does not really belong to open societies and free market democracies? And I think actually the story of the COVID vaccines is a crucial reminder of what that system can achieve. Because in the end, it was free market capitalism in the great democracies of the world that helped the world to produce the most effective vaccines. And that is the formula we must now repeat. Innovation, capitalism, and a strong government lead, because we face a challenge that is even bigger for humanity, a threat to our way of life that is ultimately far worse than COVID. In just a couple of weeks, the world will assemble in Glasgow. And I hope that many of you, all of you, will be there. Because the lesson of COVID is absolutely clear. We have to listen to the scientists. They're very often right, you know. We need urgent government action. But we must mobilize the markets. We must bring in the private sector, because I can deploy billions, with the approval of the Chancellor, obviously. But you in this room, you can deploy trillions. Indeed, I'm given to understand that there is $24 trillion represented in this room. Is that right? $24 trillion. And so I want to say to each and every one of those dollars, you're very welcome to the UK. And you've come to the right place at the right time. Because we're going through 3 huge transformations in this country, each of them driving the other and each helping to make this place a better place to invest. And the first is the Green Industrial Revolution, the 10-point plan, the new decalogue that I brought down from Sinai last year, which is today being elaborated in our plan for net zero to build back greener. This was the first nation to industrialize, to send the plumes of smoke from the Midlands. We were the first to knit the deadly tea cozy of CO2 that is now driving climate change. And so we have a responsibility to set an example. And we are. We are already the Saudi Arabia of wind power, with more offshore wind than anywhere else on earth. We have the most ambitious timetable anywhere to end ICE cars, internal combustion engine cars that run on hydrocarbons. And that's why we're making the big bets that we are with you on EVs and gigafactories, and we want to go further. It was the strike price, the idea of the contract for difference, that enabled the private sector to come in with wind power. And that's what we're now doing with hydrogen, because we want to be the Klondike of carbon capture and storage, the Qatar of hydrogen. I think Qatar may already be the Qatar of hydrogen, but we want to be with you. And I think hydrogen is part of the solution, because I saw a JCB digger yesterday that ran on hydrogen, and to drive a digger or a truck, or to hurl a massive passenger plane down the runway, you need what Jeremy Clarkson used to call grunt. I think there may be a technical term for it, but a grunt. And hydrogen provides that grunt. And so we're making big bets on hydrogen, we're making bets on solar and hydro, and yes, of course, on nuclear as well, nuclear for our baseload. And we're making such massive progress that we've now pledged to switch entirely to green power generation by 2035. And I know that there are some who say that we're going too fast. And I say to them that, frankly, there is a force out there that is stronger than government, and actually a force that is stronger even than business, represented by the $24 trillion in this room. And that force is consumer choice. That force is the market. And the market is going green. And people know that we have the technological solutions to these problems, and they want to go green. And they know that we'll be able one day to bring down the prices of green technology, EVs and heat pumps and solar panels, in a way that we so rapidly made microwaves and mobile phones affordable. And they can see that we can do it. When I was a kid, 80% of our energy came from coal. When I was mayor of London, it was down to 40%. Today, it's less than 1%. And at the same time, we are turning this green industrial revolution into sustained economic growth, because we've cut CO2 by 44% on 1990 levels in this country, and yet the UK economy has grown over that period by 78%. To adapt Gordon Gekko, who may or may not be a hero of anybody in this room, green is good, green is right, green works. And that is the way ahead for the whole planet, because this COP26 must be the moment when government joins hands with the private sector, together with the MDBs, with the IMF, the World Bank. We should be setting the parameters, the strike prices, the contract for difference for this green technology. We should be using this moment, collectively as government, to leverage in the trillions of the market, creating the country platforms that will not only tackle climate change, but deliver green jobs and green growth around the world. And here in the UK, that technological revolution is being turbocharged by the second of the three big changes that are happening in our country. We're using our new freedoms outside the EU to do things differently and to regulate, we hope, better. Not just when it comes to vaccines, but in so many areas of the 21st century economy where the UK has a lead. Financial services, cyber, AI, quantum computing, gene editing, data, tech of all kinds. FinTech, MedTech, EdTech, Nanotech, Green Tech. Starting to sound like 15th century Mexico. We lead the world in tech. We have more than there are only, let me tell you something, there are only 3 countries in the world that have more than 100 unicorns. You know what I mean by unicorn? It's a tech startup worth more than $1 billion. And they are the US, China, and the United Kingdom. And the thing about we've got about 106 now, I think. And our nearest European rival, I won't mention them by name, I have, I think, about 24, but never mind. But the point about these tech unicorns, they are increasingly dispersed around the UK. And there are tech unicorns in Manchester, in Solihull. And that brings me to the third great transformation that is happening now in our country, and the overarching moral, political, economic objective of this government. And I believe, that talent and genius and flair and imagination and enthusiasm are distributed evenly throughout the human race and throughout the UK. But opportunity is not. And for too long, we've had in the UK a grotesquely lopsided economy. So we are uniting and levelling up with a colossal £640 billion programme of investment in infrastructure, in education, in skills, and in technology. We're investing in Northern Powerhouse Rail and other massive projects connecting the great urban centres of the north so that there's the same ease of commuting, the same agglomeration effects that we've long seen in the south. We're putting gigabit broadband everywhere. It was 7% when I first became Prime Minister. It's now rising 65%, all propelled by Rishi's wonderful super deduction for capital investment. And we're investing in the skills of the British people, finally tackling the productivity puzzle, that we have some of the most productive companies anywhere in the world, but also this great long tail of relative lack of productivity, moving from a low-wage, low-skill economy to a high-wage, high-skill economy, controlling immigration, but with a commitment to global talent and making sure that we are open to people who want to come and make their lives here and contribute to our country. And that is the plan. The green industrial revolution, turbocharged by new Brexit freedoms, with an agenda to unite and level up across the country. And we have all sorts of familiar advantages, or ones that you will have heard me say before, possibly, some of you veterans of my speeches, Jerry. The time zone. We have the right time zone. We have the right language. Well, I think it's the right language. I mean, I think it's a pretty useful language. We have the rule of law. We have great universities. Some of the world's best universities are in this country and dispersed across this country. We have a cultural and media footprint so massive that Peppa Pig is, which I know a lot about at the moment, Peppa Pig is teaching kids in America to say tomato and petrol and mummy instead of mom, apparently. And there are 3 current contestants for the world #1 hit. They are Adele and Coldplay and Ed Sheeran. And if you're really worried about the weather, which I can't believe you are, let me remind you, as I never tire of saying, that it actually rains more in Rome. This is the great cultural Moulinex of the world. It is the cyclotron of talent. We already attract huge sums of inward investment, more than anywhere else in this hemisphere. And this is the moment when we in the UK want to lengthen that lead. This summit has already, by its own standards, been a success because we've raised a further 10 billion of inward investment, creating 30,000 new jobs. But you will remember that moment in Trading Places when Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd have been selling selling pork bellies, or I think maybe it's frozen concentrated orange. You remember this bit? Sell, sell, sell. And then they turn and they look at each other with a wild gleam in their eyes. And they look at the clock. And they buy, buy, buy. And now is that time, my friends. Now is the moment. Now is the moment for you to consult the atlas of investment that we've provided for you. Now is the time for you to buy into a country that has long-standing and natural advantages as a home for investment, but which is now changing and building on those advantages and moving in an exciting new direction with a green industrial revolution, with new regulatory freedoms and a new mission to unite and level up across the whole of the United Kingdom. Come with us on that journey, and I can tell you the UK government will be with you every step of the way. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the summit. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage journalist and government spokesperson for COP26, Allegra Stratton.
Hi everyone, as you heard, my name is Allegra Stratton, and to talk about the idea of the UK as a science superpower, working with all of you in this room to deal with, first and foremost, climate change, but of course the issues of our time, I am delighted to bring onto the stage my boss, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, and joining us, Bill Gates. Bill, you're being bashful there. Right, first and foremost, Prime Minister, I think you have an announcement for us all.
Yes, I do, and I just want you will have seen the video that just played, everybody, about the breakthrough partnership that the Gates Foundation and the British government are launching together today, and I think that the idea behind it is fantastic. There are a lot of money, I think, goes into some of the well-known green technologies, but what we're saying today is that we want to invest in the ones that are currently not attracting the support that they might, and that could hold out real hope for humanity and the future. So we're together. We're putting in 200 million. I think Bill's putting in 200 million. If I got the numbers right, Bill.
Checking.
Just checking. There's no
400 each.
400 each, is it?
Yeah.
Well, hang on. Okay, well, If you're already going to put in 400, I think we're going to have to go back to the Chancellor and see where we get it. But what we want to support, and I'm delighted that you're going up to 400. What we want to support is direct air capture, long-term battery life, jet zero, and green hydrogen. I think these are all technologies that have massive potential, but they're currently underinvested in by comparison with some others. So that's we're going to look
in detail at some of those innovations in a second. But firstly, Bill, at the back end of your film, you talked about acting boldly together. This is exactly what we are now watching and listening to. First of all, tell us why the UK?
Well, the UK, as was said, actually has made immense progress on reducing carbon emission. You know, the first floor of this museum, there's these steam engines which, you know, drove the industrial revolution, and of course that was based on coal. And now the UK, who started it all, has moved largely away from coal and has policies to support great science, has got the great institutions. And so with this announcement, it's perfect that we're doing this with the UK, because we're going to take these technologies which are not yet economic, that is the extra cost to be green, what we call the green premium, is very, very high today for the hydrogen and the direct air capture and sustainable aviation fuel. And with the investments we're making in projects here in the UK, that the government will tell us where to put those projects, and we'll make sure that we have private sector management power behind those projects, we will scale those up and bring down that cost. So we'll get these to the same place we are today with solar and onshore wind, and so they can be scaled up to reduce emissions.
But Bill, tell us, I mean, we don't have much time, everyone here knows that. When do you think one of them, all of them, will check out? When will we know? I know that the investment starts next year.
Well, we'll be funding these projects jointly next year. The UK's already got a number of applications coming in. We have lots of small companies that are inventing better technology for doing these things. So over the next 5-year period, we expect at least one of these technologies will be ready to scale, and over the next decade that all of them will be. Because one of the challenges with short-term goals is that we just focus on electric cars, which we need, and solar and wind, which we need, but we don't fix the industrial sector, the home heating sector, some of the tougher areas, including aviation, where green hydrogen, which we discussed last night at length, if you get the price down enough, it helps with a lot of these very hard to decarbonize areas. So this thing is going full speed. We'll jointly grant money to projects next year.
Prime Minister, I work with you, I know you very well. This is quite close to what I think your creed is, which is you deeply, passionately believe in dealing with climate change. You believe in the United Kingdom being at the forefront of that, but you think everyone in this room, help is needed.
I do, Allegra. I think that the government can't do it on its own, and the taxpayer can't do it on his or her own. It's just not going to work like that. As I said just now, we can deploy billions, perhaps hundreds of billions, but in the end, it's the trillions of the market that will make the difference. And that's why the sermon about the COVID vaccine is so important. I'm delighted, by the way, to see so many heroes of that vaccine rollout. They seem to have left, though. They've gone off to do something else. But, you know, I'll give a talk about the COVID vaccine rollout. But this was made possible by free market capitalists who invested and took money spent money at risk. Now, what government has to do is as far as we can de-risk those investments, not just in the UK but around the world, and that's going to be, I think that's going to be the secret of COP, to be absolutely frank, and for tackling climate change in the future. The developing world has got to be given the help it needs to decarbonize. Why should you? We in the UK, we've been pumping this stuff into the air for 200 years. Those countries haven't, and they're going to need help to reduce their CO2 output. But the only way that help can be given in the volume required is with massive private sector investment, but government has to take away the risk.
Bill, in your book, I think you call that global leveling up.
Yeah, if we just take the technologies we have today, it's unaffordable even in the rich countries, but certainly unaffordable in the middle income countries. And that's why COP26, it's fantastic. The second day is devoted to innovation. 6 years ago, innovation was in a side tent event that I organized with some world leaders. It was not part of the COP. Here, I think you'll see the most exciting thing going on is that Innovation Day. And the way that you can get from the trillions that you would have to subsidize down to something that really works is through innovation. And so we have to look at these incredible premiums and say, okay, what innovation anywhere in the world, including a lot of UK innovation, can be done? And it's that scale up, building the first big green hydrogen plant, building the first steel plant that is completely clean. That's how you get the cost down. So what happened with solar, lithium-ion batteries, and is in the process of happening, we often give the example of offshore wind, where the UK is the leader in making sure that every new field that gets built, that difference that the government has to fund comes down. And eventually, like it has with electric cars, eventually it reaches zero. And then you can say to these people to put out their trillions. When the green premium is very high, then you need to activate innovation. And the rich countries have that innovation. So when people say, well, why should we reduce our emissions? Those other middle income countries aren't going to do it. The answer is that by doing it and going first with these projects, we drive the cost down and enable the entire world, not just the rich world or rich companies. And the rich companies are the funding, this catalyst money. It's partly philanthropic money from me, but it's also private sector companies.
Yeah, people here
who are
They will get a very substantial return.
Yeah, well, this money, this upfront money, not so much. No, I mean, look, somebody's got...
Oh, you mean the 400 stroke 800
yes,
billion?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, right.
Eventually, as we get that green premium down, then they will fund the offshore wind farms, the nuclear reactors.
I was talking to somebody, I think it was from some friendly Gulf country, who was saying the offshore wind was like a license to print money at them, or some phrase like that. I don't want to put words into his mouth.
But Bill, I think you think that the innovations of today are not struggling for investment. It's the innovations of tomorrow.
Well, of the source of emissions, the majority are not economic today. That is, green aviation fuel costs twice as much as normal aviation fuel. Green cement costs twice as much as normal cement. And it's very hard to turn to India and say, okay, build half as many buildings and roads and don't have the basic shelter that we take for granted. And it's also hard to say, okay, here's trillions of dollars to subsidize your using green cement.
Correct.
Neither of those things are going to work. The good news is that with the right innovation, that premium can be brought down to be either very small or zero. And so somebody's got to fund these projects. You're funding that difference in cost for offshore wind. Here, we're talking about the first projects that will be in these first 4 areas. And you'll pick the area of the country where the job creation is important, and you want to build up those skills. But our 400 million pounds and yours will fund those projects. And it's because of those projects, like the original funding for solar panels when they were expensive, or lithium-ion batteries when they were very expensive, that gets you on this scale-up learning curve. And then you either get very, very small green premiums or magically absolutely no green premium.
PM, the International Energy Agency published the other day saying we don't have the technology yet totally to get us to 2050 net zero. Either we don't have it, or to Bill's point, it's too expensive. I'm going to ask you a question I think I know the answer to. Does it ever daunt you?
No, because I think that the speed of progress can be so extraordinary, and that was the point I was trying to make earlier on. A year to crack a COVID vaccine, when humanity really wants something, our Promethean powers of invention are quite amazing. When we have to do it, then we do it. necessity the mother of invention. We crack it. And look at what the UK has done with coal-fired power stations. It's a big problem around the world. I'm massively sympathetic to countries that are still relying on coal, but there are alternatives. You know, wind is not a commodity that is restricted to the UK. There are plenty of. I know it hasn't been a particularly windy year, but we must propitiate Aeolus, the god of winds, and sacrifice a goat or something and get him. But
lots
of goats
but
in a humane way, obviously.
But Bill, thinking about the IEA report, you were nodding your head there. You've already outlined the four in the video: green hydrogen, long-term batteries, SAF, we call it Jet Zero, and then direct air capture. But it's going to have to be something other than that, isn't it? Or are those four going to get us to net zero?
Yes, those four cover the majority of the areas that are still not economic today. So, you take this thing about the wind has been low. Well, that's where you need the long-term storage to take the sunny days, the windy days, and actually have enough energy for the rest of that time. Reliability is still very important to people. You get long periods that are very cold, you get periods that are very hot, and you actually get less generation and more demand during both of those difficult periods. The IEA report was good because what IEA has always done in the past is they've shown business as usual without breakthrough innovation. And sadly, that shows that we won't reduce hydrocarbon usage much at all. We funded the IEA to say, hey, assume we got to zero, what would have had to happen? And that's why these four innovations were at the top of their list, where innovation would happen.
What about fusion, Bill? Well, you haven't got much on. Why don't we back a? When I became a member of Parliament for South Oxfordshire for Henley 20 years ago, they told me that fusion was just 20 years away. I went to this laboratory in Culham where they were doing it. Unfortunately, it still is 20 years away. But do you not think that offers a prospect for humanity as well?
Absolutely. So the three technologies, we have these first four where we have good ideas about how to do the projects, we're ready to go. The next three is we need low-cost fission, which the UK is looking for partners to do that. And I think some good things can emerge there. Fusion is further off. There are some advances. I've invested in a number of fusion companies, but I would say it's still too soon on that one. And then cement is the last one. Cement. And so area by area, you have to take all those areas of emissions. And the optimism that you're showing, of course, I agree completely. We've seen in the digital realm, we've seen in the health realm, whether it's malaria or COVID, there's great things happening there. Our foundation funds a lot of research in the UK to do that. Here in energy, it's a little bit harder because you have to build these big plants. You have to replace every steel factory, every cement factory in the world. It's the large physical economy we have. So we have to adapt our thinking a little bit, but that same optimism, finding brilliant ideas, bootstrapping the scale to get it to be economic. I'm very optimistic, which is the only way we'll hit zero by 2050, not just in rich countries, but in the entire world.
And to both of you, I mean, we need to move on to COP in a second, but to everyone in this room, the only way we hit 2050 net zero is with everyone's help.
That's right.
That's right.
At each stage of the innovation pipeline, the people in this room have a role to play, particularly once we get those things at low green premiums, and you've got to scale up at the trillions and trillions of dollars level.
Okay, right. COP26 in a fortnight. I'm going to ask both of you the same question. What do you need to be seeing and hearing for it to be a success?
Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
One I have a go. What we've got to do, Allegra, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. We've got to keep 1.5 alive. Keep 1.5 alive. At one point, that means we've got to make sure that humanity still has the ability to restrict the increase in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century. That sounds like a pretty modest ambition. In reality, that's a huge thing to achieve, and it will be dramatic for our lives and for the lives of our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and so on. It is crucial that we do it. The evidence is overwhelming. How do we do it? Countries have to make bigger commitments to reduce their their CO2. The nationally determined contributions have to be bigger, and we're working on that. We've got a very good attendance. In spite of the pandemic, it looks like a lot of people are going to be able to come in person to COP. But the four areas of practical progress that we want are on coal, cars, cash, and trees. I've already mentioned the cash. You've got to support countries that are a long way off in their ability to put in this technology, and that's why we need that $100 billion a year. It's crucial for the success of the summit that the G20 countries, the rich countries, show that they understand the solidarity, the global solidarity that's necessary. That's absolutely crucial. Coal, I've said what I've said. We can move beyond coal. We need to do that. And the President Xi in China made a big commitment to no more financing of international coal. That's great, but we need to move away from coal more generally across the world. By 2040 for everybody, for 2030 for developed nations. Cars. Sorry, I'll just quickly sum up. Cars. We need to end our dependence on ICE, internal combustion engine, hydrocarbon-driven cars. And trees. We need to plant zillions of trees. I can't remember the exact number, but it's zillions.
Yeah.
What is the number?
A lot.
Zillions will do.
Yeah. Part of the beauty of a conference like this is to be honest about the innovations we still don't have. So, anybody who expects this conference to say, okay, we have everything we need, it's done, we don't need to have this meeting again, that's not realistic. But if you look at how far we've come in the last 6 years and how innovation now is embedded into this gathering to challenge people in areas like, green hydrogen today is ridiculously expensive. And even these, first few projects will only get us part of the way. But I do think it's forced people to increase their commitments. It's forced the world to look at where we still have gaps. And that's what's going to drive us to solve the problem.
Something's happened that I never thought would happen, which is we've finished on time. That 20 seconds they've just given us, for me, I suppose. I hope it's been clear from the last 15, 20 minutes, whether it's bills, acting boldly together, or the PM's magic formula, government, business, science, that we want to get to net zero, but we want to do it with all of you in the room. So anyway, my thanks. I hope all of you join me in thanking Bill Gates and the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Allegra. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
good job.
great.
Good job.
Thanks so much.
So we got you to 800.
I hope I'm right.
Thank you very much.